I'm not.
Hello and welcome to the Pixel Scandal Nerdcast, episode 37. I'm Kurt.
Nightson.
Handor.
Oreztes. Yo.
End of line.
All right, and we're sans Gidget tonight. So I gotta moderate this thing. So it's gonna be real loose, y'all. But if you want to know where you can find us on the internet, you can head over to pixelscandal.com and find past episodes and links to stuff and our social media things, and it's all there. Just go to pixelscandal.com.
All right. And tonight we're going to be talking, kind of expanding on our topic last week of, powerful and established characters, gods and religion in your games. So that should be interesting. But first, Endo, any announcements for us?
Yeah, we got a few announcements. We're going to be playing. Scroll up here. Sorry. We have our Hitman 2. We're still, or I should say, Nightson is still rocking Hitman 2. Those episodes are still releasing on Tuesdays on our YouTube channel. So if you're following that, go ahead and catch up. Or go ahead and check it out on Tuesday when he launches those videos. And if you hit up our YouTube channel, you can go ahead and look through the previous episodes. Our Pixel Scandal side quest, we have our next episode tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tomorrow at 4 p.m., we're going to be playing Mutants in the Night, run by DC.
Mutants.
That's going to be, again, at 4 p.m.
Mutants.
That's going to be amazing. Check that out as well. On the 26th, on a Saturday,
Which is next week.
we are going to be playing the Great American Novel, Southern Vampire Mysteries, better known as True Blood, it says, which is it's like in that vein. And that's going to be run by Chris Gray. We had a schedule change where our previously scheduled GM had something come up, and Chris was kind enough to make himself available to run American Novel for us. So he'll be...
not just any American novel. A great
American novel.
Yeah.
The
great
American novel.
We refuse to play at anything less than the greatest.
The greatest of American novels.
Yeah, which unfortunately is not Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Is it anything like the greatest song in the world?
Yeah,
Probably not.
This is going to be a tribute.
Because
This is a tribute to that game.
Yeah,
That's
that
what I was
song's just
gonna
a
say.
tribute.
This might be a tribute to the Great American Novel, too. We'll see.
But the fact that True Blood is not the greatest American novel. So already off the bat.
Our next Dungeon World game is going to be February 9th, and that'll be at 9 a.m. For those of you who are checking that out, we apologize. We had to take a break from our last Dungeon World game due to injury. But we'll be back in swing on February 9th to pick up with that story. That'll be at 9 a.m.
Yes.
And that's our announcements.
All right. Well, I'm up first because I've got stuff I'm excited about.
You're always excited about things.
That is a lot of just random characters.
Yeah, those are just letters he made up. Those aren't real things.
He wrote a string of letters. HJRPG group.
Well, all words are strings of letters. What do you want? So OrcCon is a gaming convention down in Los Angeles. Gidget and I will be attending. It takes place in 15th through the 18th of February. And I have been asked to GM a game for Happy Jacks on their stream. They wanted to they wanted to stream some games from the con.
That's an awesome idea.
Yeah, and so they're going to do some live streamed games. It's going to be split with 2 Happy Jacks players and 2 signups. So 2
randos?
Con goers. They'll be informed, of course, that they are going to be recorded.
No, just hit the camera.
Just walk in the room and congratulations!
And more than likely they will be Happy Jack listeners and
I'm sure
frequenters of that community, because nobody outside of Happy Jacks plays Happy Jack games, and that's how Happy Jack fans like it.
Yeah,
that's also why they tend to be the best games at the cons.
Yeah, right. I'm super excited about that. There's a lot of other Happy Jacks hosts are going to run games. Tomer is going to run a game. So keep an eye out. It'll be Saturday. from 2 to 4. No, 1 to 4. I'll have better dates next week when we'll get it into our announcements when it gets closer. So
When
if
you
you're
guys
interested in
run it?
watching that live, you can do that.
Have you decided what you're going to run?
I am going to run lighthearted. I'm going to run I'm going to run my rules light setting. I actually wrote I wrote the pitch for lighthearted, so I can actually give the pitch.
You guys play tested
while
this
you're
for them, right?
hunting. Yeah.
Yeah, hit the feedback.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, I'm kind of super stoked that they're putting all their games up, or at least some of their games up, because I have super enjoyed the games that I've played when I went a couple years ago, and I'd love to have actually, a recording of that, so so the world can see the antics.
Oh man, I would love to have a recording of that game we played that Bill Roper ran for us.
The Grim game?
The
Grim game? Yeah, that game is
amazing.
incredible.
My only concern about that is, it might have gotten better since then, but the last time that I went to OrCon, I remember the Hilton Wi-Fi not being so great.
So I think they got them either wired, like a wired connection, or because they streamed the last 2 years worth of con episodes.
Okay.
And so they've sort of worked it out. We'll have to see how things go.
Are those games going to be held in the room where they film the podcast? Or
It'll have to be in a specific room, I'm sure, so they can have everything set up.
Okay.
So people can just cycle in and out.
That's cool.
But yeah, if you're interested in Lighthearted, Lighthearted is a rules light game of 80s nostalgia, neon, and magic, told through a group of college students as they manage volatile emotions, fragile relationships, and labels they've lived with since high school.
And for those who have been listening, to this podcast for a while, this is basically the growth of Nuclear Night School. It's the system that was designed to support his setting.
Yeah, so
Purple is the best emotion.
Purple is a fantastic emotion.
I spent half that game trying to get red, and it was not as easy as you'd think.
We'll have to do on our channel, we'll have to do an actual play of Lighthearted so people can know what the hell we're talking about here. Because I feel like that is definitely one thing that is best described visually when you see the bar of the emotions and how they look on a scale.
So you're just going to have to get in line because SideQuest is booked up through May?
Yeah.
Well, am I a SideQuest GM?
No.
I work here. What are we doing?
No.
I'll just run that shit myself.
My only request is, can we be a little bit higher level so I can get into the old spectrum?
Oh, you want the infra and ultra?
Yes.
Yeah, that is definitely something that does not exist yet, but is planned for when there's actually progression in that game.
All right. Endo, you have something here.
I am excited about the Resident Evil 2 remake that is launching next Friday. I just found out something very cool. When I first had played Resident Evil 1 for PlayStation 1, a buddy of mine, Tori, came over to my house, and my parents were gone, and we were pretty young at the time, and we decided we were going to play through the whole game with the lights out, and we played through it all in one setting, and it scared the shit out of us. I remember at one time getting to the cabins, there's a big furry spider that falls down, and we both fell out of our chairs, and it nearly broke my PlayStation pulling it off of my countertop. Well, anyway, I just found out that a buddy's going to be coming over on Friday, and we're going to just ham it up and get it on the TV and play through it co-op, just like that. So I'm pretty stoked about it. I played through the 30-minute demo a couple of times. By the way, I know it's time locked, but there's a cheat you can do online if you Google it to unlock it and play it again. I played through it a couple of times, and it's absolutely amazing. So I'm super excited.
All right. Sounds good. All right. So what we have played recently. Kurt, you want to head this off?
Sure, yeah. So we, Nightson, Endo, and I went up to our FLGS, our friendly local gaming store, Crazy Squirrel, and we did a Magic the Gathering tournament because Nightson and I have been playing a lot of Magic the Gathering Arena, and we saw that the new they had their pre-release event, but I am too old to go at midnight. But today at noon they had a two-headed ogre, I believe is the
Two-headed giant, but yeah.
Two-headed giant. Two-headed giant is the name of the format where you play as teams. So you and your teammate, you each have your own hands and you basically play your own game, except you can block creatures for each other. You share a pool of health, and you all take your turn, and you each take your turns at the exact same time. There were a couple other interesting things that sort of like interacted, but for the most part, you had your creatures and they had theirs. It was just the health pool that was shared, and then one of the most interesting things was any card or effect that hit each opponent or each player did double duty because it would hit both players and affect the shared life pool. So yeah, there was one card that saw a lot of play that was just pinging everybody for tons of damage. Well, tiny amounts of damage, but very frequently.
Yeah.
You want to? I don't know the names of the guilds. I was Gruul, I think.
Yeah. I will say if the pre-release for Ravnica Alliance or Alliances of Ravnica or Allegiance of Ravnica, I don't know, is basically throughout this weekend. So if you happen to head out to your friendly local game store, check it out. From my experience, from everything I've heard, and definitely from today, it is a very casual, lowbrow. If you haven't played Magic in a while and want to get back into it, or just check it out, it's super fun, super low key, and it's a lot of fun.
I like how Oreztes is just shaking his head. Like no,
don't want to get back into it. Nope. No.
Yeah, it was. I had a blast playing. I actually had never done a tournament like that. So I had really low expectations going in, but I had a lot of fun. We actually went 2-2, so we won 2, lost 2. Nightson and I were teamed up, and then Endo, you had you paired up with another solo con goer or. Yep.
Me and a random dude.
Yeah. How did your games go with your random dude?
We went 1-3. So we only won one game.
Yeah. So we are the superior dancers then, it seems like.
Apparently.
Yes, definitely.
So a lot of it was luck. I mean, you get one bad draw and it's not best of 3, so you're kind of SOL, right? You're stuck. But it was I don't know, it was cool. It was nice having a buddy, right? To sort of like, oh, what do you think of this? Or, should we play this next? Or so.
Yeah. What I will say is it was really well organized, and all the people we played against were really friendly and nice, and it wasn't super competitive. It was really fun atmosphere, so that was good.
Yeah, every game we played was joking and laughing and just kind of screwing around.
I mean, if you're playing two-headed giant and you're not bickering with your partner and attacking each other, then you're doing it wrong.
I didn't really see any of that. I mean,
if they didn't have
maybe a little bit with one couple of friends, but that was really it. One of them was a newer player, so it was,
yeah. There was definitely some interesting dynamics, right? Like we sat across from I don't know if it was a couple.
Probably it looked like a married couple.
It looked like a married couple who were really in sync. Like they really knew what they planned to do. They were talking about previous two-headed ogre events or two-headed giant events they'd won. And then we sat across from one group where it was like one guy was really serious and into the game, and the other guy was like just trying to keep up. Like just I'm trying, man. Like don't be mad at me. We're losing. I know. Like it's not my fault. I had a bad draw. Like. But yeah, it was funny. One of our games, one of the ones we lost was it was just fun playing because the two guys were like really funny.
Yeah. And I know that they mentioned that they might check out the podcast tonight. So if you are watching, thank you for not killing Kurt's creature and letting him get to play with it at least one round.
Yes, my amplifier. That was a fun card to have out. We're pro fun. I just kept telling people that. I'm stealing that. We're pro fun at this table.
Pro fun.
All right, so moving. Oh dear God, Handor,
who's doing
really?
That? Who's playing D3?
There's only one person who could be playing it.
Handor.
So, give us
We
your
don't-
pitch.
we don't have-
Three.
I
Give
mean,
us-
to be
give us the
honest,
pitch.
we don't have to talk about it. It's fine.
Well, no. I know, like, we kind of ragged on it last time the season came around. So what drug you guys back into it?
I don't know, man. It's like a thing, man. Like when season comes around, like you're like,
Their developers
so.
have been sitting around the round table for the last 3 months, just like brainstorming what to do this season. They wanted to do something super radical, something super extreme and creative, and so they
More
made it to where
goblins?
bounties drop one more thing.
I'll tell you what. Something that they did do this patch is
Changed a 2 to a 3 in a script somewhere.
Yeah, man. The necromancer was so strong, like consistently. So they buffed every other class by like 3,000%, and then like gave necromancer a like 3% buff on their pet build.
That sounds exciting.
Yeah, super exciting. This season's thing is like you get a free ring of royal grandeur. I think is what it is when you start off.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I will say that is probably the most creative meta shifting thing they've done in a long time. Because that does shift the meta quite a bit, actually, I imagine.
Yeah. Other than that, it's just the same. Sorry, Blizzard, but it's just the same shit, man.
Well, they're keeping it low key. They don't want Diablo going under any more than it already has. They're drawing so much fire from everything else happening right now with Activision.
It's almost at this point they kind of just want to just avoid the news.
Yeah.
We're not coming out with a new season. We're not talking about anything.
It can't be worse than the way of Fallout 76 and Bethesda.
Yeah.
But they are going back to their esports, but the prize pools are going to be crowdfunded, so that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else y'all
Okay.
excited about? What
Next
else was played recently?
It looks like a list here. Oreztes, you want to let us know what's going on here?
Oh yeah, I started playing, so I finished Dragon Quest 11, which was really good. It just never ended. So I started digging into some other games that I got for Christmas. So I started with Atelier Sophie, which was a JRPG about just crafting. So like the pitch for that is like you know how when you're playing a standard RPG and then you're going through and you're playing, leveling up, getting all your gear and everything, and you get to the last vendor right before the final boss and they have like all the best equipment in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, how did you get out here with all this crap? That's who you play in this game. You play the shopkeeper that just makes items and grinds out dungeons after
God
the
damn it!
heroes.
Can I borrow the stupid game?
I know that sounds
Sounds kind of awesome, actually.
That sounds
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, but this is like one of the games in a whole long series. There's probably 20 different Atelier games, and this one is the most kind of introductory, friendly one. So I started with this one. I stopped playing it because there's not like a whole lot of like railroading, I guess. I got to a point a couple hours in where it was just like, I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing here. I'm just running through the same zones over and over, farming equipment. So I'm going to move on to something different. So I started playing Shining Resonance, which is typical kind of JRPG thing. But that one, I stopped playing that one because I'm probably about 4 hours into the game and I still don't have a res. So whenever one of my party members dies, they just get nothing for it. And it's frustrating because now I'm starting to have like a weird level imbalance in my group. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh. And then I started playing Final Fantasy 15, which should be called Wind Waker in a car, because I'm about 25 hours in and about 20 of those hours have been spent in a car. And I'm not a huge fan.
Sounds like a nightmare.
It sucks, dude. The driving is poo. Like the first beginning of the game is like you're in a car and you don't even get to drive it. One of the NPCs drives it for you. And it's not fast travel. They're literally driving a car from point A to point B, and you have to sit there, and that's how they do their story in the car with the people in the car talking to each other.
So
It's
it's
like-
GTA 5 taking a cab.
Yeah, and it's like, this
Except for
sucks.
way worse.
Yeah, and it's like, well, this kind of sucks. But then it gets to the point where your car gets upgraded to an off-road vehicle, and you get to drive it, and it's like, oh, cool, I don't got to follow the roads anymore. But they put like BS, just like random blocks everywhere. So it's like you want to go from here to here. Well, there's a straight line you could just take in your off-road vehicle, but there's some trees and a mountain that you can't really drive through, so you have to actually follow the road all the way around anyways. And it's like, well, that's bullcrap. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Final Fantasy 15 because I've spent probably 80% of the game just in a car driving around back and forth between locations, and it's like, this sucks.
Well, I know historically when I think Final Fantasy games, I think driving in a car.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Can we throw back real quick if I haven't interrupted you, Oreztes? I want to throw back to what are you excited about real quick and talk about a buddy of mine that I just found out that's been listening to the Nerdcast through a podcatcher on his way back and forth to work. So that was exciting for me to hear that. So shout out to my buddy Primetime. You know who you are. Thanks for listening.
Something exciting for Handor. We have a listener.
We have a listener.
Yeah,
I mean, sure, that's legit.
Yeah.
And we've also heard rumors that he claims that one of our cast members sounds like Hank Azaria. So just let us know who you think that is.
Yeah, guess in chat.
Gidget.
Yeah.
Gidget, yeah.
Definitely Gidget.
Definitely get it.
It's probably get you, yeah.
All right, and then for me, they finally got around to releasing Blue Mage this week, so I got to get in there and steal some monster abilities.
Yay.
Couple interesting points. Number one, you do not have to be the one to kill the mob. There are no level requirements, just so long as you tag it.
Well,
All right.
And there is really only 3 abilities that matter until you're 50.
Wait,
You have a tank ability, which gives you reduced 70% damage, but you take 40% less damage, so you just stay alive better. But you don't do much damage. Oh, that's unfortunate. You have a heal spell, which heals in an AoE for equal to your current health. So
Okay.
probably the
That's
strongest heal in
insane.
the game.
Your current
Yeah,
total health or your
it's-
current max health?
Total health.
Okay.
So you basically have to use it when soloing. You have to use it when you're half, and it'll
Yeah.
fill you back up. But in a group setting, it's just practical joke heal after practical joke heal.
Okay.
And then the third ability is 1K needles.
Mm-hmm.
1K needles does 1,000 damage divided amongst the number of targets you hit. In comparison, your other abilities do about 50.
wow.
It one-shots every single creature up till about level 33.
Yeah, sounds legit.
Yeah, so dungeons are literally 4 blue mages in Party Finder running around, grabbing a pack of mobs, and then all spamming 1K needles and just watching everything just melt.
Oh my
But
God.
it's fun. I'm having fun with it.
Yeah.
The
Is there
scaling,
PvP in that game?
Yeah.
there is. Blue mages aren't part of it.
Oh, okay.
There is PvP and it's actually fun. I do it, which is weird.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Do you just run
What's
in
wrong
there
with
as scholar and heal the party?
No,
Passively?
I run in there in Bard, and I put all of my abilities on one button, and then I just spam tab and 1, and just do highest priority damage.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
As I
Blake.
just run around.
I was literally thinking about the heal rotation style from EverQuest 1 with how we were doing healing in the dungeon. You know, waiting till someone's at 20. Oh, everyone's back to full.
Yeah.
Have you tried to get level 5 petrification yet? Have you been farming Hawk Manor?
No, because I'm stuck on the stupid the Tomtaro Mind Flayer. Because to get the level 20 quest, you have to have got the Mind Flayer ability. I have done it like 7 or 8 times now, and it's just not learning for me. And so I'm just banging my head against that before
from
I
the
move
boss, right?
Yeah.
And you have to kill it for it to.
on. Yep.
That sucks.
But, you know, law of averages. I'll eventually land it.
Mhm.
Yeah. I
All
need to
right.
reach
Well,
the play.
is that seems like a good time to transition into our spotlight topic of gods and
Yeah.
religion in RPGs. So I think Nightson, this was your idea. So you want to
Not in the slightest, but I'll still roll with it.
Oh, was it not? Was this? Oh, it was
This is
Gidget's
you.
topic.
Oh, was it?
Oh,
okay.
no. Well, I've got some things to say about it. Who wants to start first? Who wants to go first?
Well,
I think I'll
guess
take point on this one.
sure, go for it.
The
We're
one with
waiting.
the most experience. Give us your
Yeah, that was for those of us, for the listeners that know me, that was a joke. So
Yeah. So this kind of expands on last week's topic, which was powerful NPCs and canon NPCs in your environment, what they can add or subtract to your world. And to go further than that, what are the most powerful NPCs? Well, the gods in your world.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a question of what do gods or religion as in a sense add to your world, subtract from your world? Is it the kind of thing that you want to be using? And so I guess the first question, and this is for everyone, from your experience, what can religion and or gods add to your story?
It can add a ton of flavor for sure.
Oh yeah.
It also gives you a roadmap for some characters, like especially if you play a cleric. It kind of gives you a roadmap on like certain aspects of your character if you're really truly following a particular god. For me, certainly, I remember playing with Mike back at the library, and we had a cleric we played with all the time who worshipped Fultus.
Oh my lord!
And man, that would shift the tempo of a table real quick. Having a Fultus cleric, because everything was just so like hyper, like racist, and like it was just, like really horrible. And I played a cleric too of Palor, I believe. And so it was constantly like watching this horrible cleric, like, oh, well, we should just execute them. I mean, you know, they did this silly thing that's against the law. Just execute them. Oh, chill out, bro. But her character was really very, very defined, and she played very strictly within the confines of her worshiping of Fultus, who was like a really strict and demanding, you know, deity. Where I played Palor, and I was kind of chill. But anyway, it added a ton of flavor to her character, and we all had to like walk on eggshells around her and shit.
But in cases like that, though, that has, I think, a lot to do with the person playing the character as opposed to what their actual deity is. Because on one hand, we have a person who's playing a clerical Fultus, who, if you know, like Nerdcast was saying, or Enderland was saying, very kind of like, you know, we're just gonna hang the witch, burn the witch, like that kind of thing.
Except in this case, witches is anyone not human and not lawful neutral.
Yeah.
Right.
But then on the other hand, you have people who like to play paladins who are just like assholes just for the sake of being an asshole. And it's like, I would hate, like, okay, we have experience. I'm not going to name names. We have experience with a paladin who is a very bad paladin. And I would be afraid to give that person a cleric of Fultus. Because it would be like paladin times 10. It would just be like, no, we're just going to murder literally. And that's, I think it can add flavor to your game if the person playing it does it well.
I think I think the paladin thing has more to do with players using like in-character stuff as excuse for bad player behavior. Versus like what the religion can add to the RPG, right? Like a paladin or a cleric in a living campaign setting where you get random people coming to the game and that kind of stuff. That's a little different than, you know, oh, well, my character would act this way because this deity says it's okay to act this way. Like, sure, but player behavior versus character behaviors is different. And that's, I mean, I don't know if you can blame there being Fultus or blame bad player behavior on someone having a character that worships a
what is the strength
god.
of your character? What is the strength of your character, Mr. Paladin, to stretch out a scene 30 minutes longer than it needed to be? That is the power of my role. Stretch out a discussion and decision making to take an hour instead of 20 minutes. Awesome.
But yeah, as we were saying, and this goes back to the powerful NPCs, it does add, and this Blake was saying this as well, but it adds fullness to your world. It adds believability to how things work. both in a meta sense of this is why magic works the way it does, or why certain things, but even in the more macro sense of this is why this city is here, this is why this city is in charge of this, or this does this, and this is why these people hate each other or like each other.
Yeah.
Or why everyone wants to stab these goblins.
Oh yeah. I think it's they can add having deities, established deities in your setting, I think can add a lot to sort of, like you said, build out why things work the way they do, right? If there's a creation myth for your setting that's like Pelor, opened his eyes and light came out and that's why there's sunshine, right? And whatever, right? Whatever the things are, you can look and say like, oh, well, elves exist because this god cut themselves and the blood fell on the ground, and so they're literally the descendants of this deity. Like that adds something to of the how and why your setting exists. On the flip side to that, I think playing characters who are religious in a world where the gods actually show themselves, or playing characters that aren't religious in settings where the gods actually show themselves can be a little silly, right? Like, why would you deny you can't deny their existence, right? You may deny their like right to decide how you act. But so it comes down to, you end up with this like faith versus knowing a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, how did Sasha get to be a Knight of the Cross?
Well, that's something in settings where gods don't actually show themselves, right? Like they don't come down and act on the world in a way that you could justifiably say, oh yeah, no, that's the Raven Queen. I just watched her walk over here with her Raven cloak and resurrect that dude or whatever. Like if you just get your power because you pray every morning, who's to say that it's what is giving you that power?
But in the case of like gods who are physically manifesting in your world and hanging out, very Greek style, gods messing with people kind of thing, it isn't so much, I would argue it isn't so much a disbelief as you aren't a god. You might be powerful. Like it's kind of weirder in the Greek thing because there isn't magic, but in the Forgotten Realms, Elminster is in the time where he wasn't a god, but is kind of indistinguishable from a god in all intents and purposes. Super powerful, can do whatever he wants. He doesn't want this city here anymore. It's not there anymore. Mm-hmm. He wants a city there. It's there.
Right.
Seems pretty god, or at least god adjacent.
Yeah.
Well, it's like that. What I was talking about the other day in Netheril, the setting for Forgotten Realms, where there's that spell, that level 12 spell, which is why I was so intrigued by this setting, is because it's like, this is the only way you're going to get above level 9 spells. And there's actually lore for why D&D stops at level 9 spells in this, but like they have a level 12 spell called Karsus's Avatar, where you literally just turn into a god. It's like, hey, that god right there, I want to be that dude. And then you just swap places with them. And now you are that god. And that god is just, what the hell? Like, now I'm just a shitty wizard that can cast level 12 spells.
I think Elminster may have cast that once or twice.
Well, it sounds like you guys have had some good positive experiences with this. I can say that I have consistently had overwhelmingly negative experiences with characters that are playing religious characters in the game. And I think that's more often than not because I feel like people feel like they have to blindly follow that, and they kind of like take away their own agency a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a problem. And I think people don't realize that just because you have a faith in a god or something like that, there's always some bit of interpretation involved. And I think people don't take that interpretation about how they should handle a certain thing. They feel like they have to walk that straight and narrow rule. And it makes for such a rigid and boring character to play with.
And to go take a step beyond that, the kind of back and forth between trying to figure out how a character sees their god and does that god agree with how that character sees them, it creates a very interesting fiction, because I had once played a game years and years and years ago, but a cleric who basically his belief structure was to do this one thing, but it ended up being a very bad thing, and so he threw it all away. This was second edition D&D, so that kind of cleric is now a X level fighter without fighter abilities. Good luck. But it was a very interesting story.
I think so. Then this comes back down to player behavior versus like using that as an excuse for bad player behavior, right? Or using this as sticking too rigidly to any one thing in an RPG just gets a little dull after a while. Like if your character doesn't change over time, then why are you playing? What do you want to find out, right?
The pacifist trope is probably the one that drives me the most crazy.
I'm okay with a pacifist in a game, but don't bring a pacifist to a game that is explicitly about killing things and taking their stuff. Like if you want to play a pacifist, come to the group. This is why group character creation is so important. If you come to the group and you say, "Hey, I want to play a pacifist," is that going to be a hindrance to our fun, right? Is me not wanting to get in a fight going to be a problem? And in our group, I don't think it is, right? Because I know Oreztes has played passive healers in the past.
Book of Exalted Deeds pacifist. That ruins everybody's fun. That is, not only am I not going to attack somebody, but neither are you. And if you try, you lose your powers.
I know this is kind of off topic, but my biggest example of how pacifism can work and create a very interesting story is our Shadowrun game, in which Endo was a pacifist, could not stand fighting, but Gidget played his sister and was, I'm going to go ahead and say, bloodthirsty.
Yeah, dude.
In that game, she was very bloodthirsty.
Yeah, but she made a point of hiding all of her murders from him.
Yep.
Well, she wanted to protect her little brother.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she wanted me to retain innocence.
Yeah.
So,
but
okay, go ahead.
For pacifism, like I do tend to play, quote unquote pacifist characters, but that's mostly just because I'm lazy and I don't like dice for myself, so I make you guys do it. But yeah, I mean, even when I'm playing a pacifist, I don't impose, I'm not going to hurt nobody. I'm not going to impose that on you guys. Even if I'm playing like my healer, like in 4th ed, my 4th ed healer, where it's just like, nah, I'm not doing nothing. Like, I'm just going to hang back. And then when you get down to like 10 hit points, I'll heal you.
And to be fair, I just have to say, yes, that character was a pacifist, but there were two things. One, I would try and defend myself if I was in danger. Mm-hmm. And two, the entire focus of my character was hacking and stuff. So I was contributing to the party strongly in another way.
So like I said, I mean, that's a question of is my choice to not fight hindering our fun? And if the whole group doesn't say, yeah, we'd love to have you come play this pacifist, then why are you doing that, right? If it's and not the characters but the players. Because at this point we're talking about should the players the players should all be having fun, right? Like everyone should be able to agree this is the tone and this is the type of game that we are going for. And if you make a character that doesn't fit that, then you've done something on purpose to make this be less fun.
Well, and RPG gaming has changed quite a bit in the last couple of years, right? You would typically go into a campaign blind. Now it's very common for a tables to sit down and the GM kind of give a scope of what type of game you're going to be playing. You can make a conscious decision on how to build your composition of your party and what kind of personalities you want that are going to complement that story. That isn't really something we ever did 5-6 years ago. Now there's much better dialogue between the players and the GMs now at the table before you even get going. I think that's good.
So I'm going to kind of pull us back. We kind of went off in our own direction, but getting back to the topic at hand, what does faith to a religion or a greater being actually look like? Do we have any examples or?
So this is actually something I'm most interested about. This topic is when you're world building at the world building stage. So either if it's a GM activity or if this is the whole group is creating the world together, what faith looks like decides a lot about your world. Like if there is a culture that goes to a service every day to pray and to receive communion or something like that, they have to have, like, now something about every town needs a temple, and that temple needs to be accessible, and everyone's going to have to, skew their work day to fit in their time to get to temple, right? If the faith includes things like self-harm or all sorts of other things that you do for yourself, right? Like, if you have flagellation in your thing, is that something that you're allowed to let people witness? So how do you pray when you're on a mission, right? So those kind of things are interesting to me, world building wise. Plus, it can even create some just interesting flavor to that makes it a little more interesting than the cleric equivalent of the wizard preparing their spells in the morning. Right. Yeah. What do you have to do?
Well, a lot of times you must present your symbol, right? Yeah. So other people need to know, and presenting your symbol could be a dangerous thing in some spaces. So if you have faith, you know that your God will protect you from that, and you want to make sure that it's displayed predominantly and that you're reflective of your faith and whatnot. That can cause a lot of problems and interesting situations to put your players into. Oh yeah, like if you're if you're praying to a god that is outlawed in the area that you're in, like using your special using any powers that you get from that is of course like now that's super dangerous, right? How do you hide yourself away? I don't remember the game that we were playing with the Cabal of Shadows-ish kind of game where every time we go to a city, you'd run around defiling all the other statues and stuff, all the deities.
Yeah, or with the old classic Pelor, the sun god. How do you feel about being stuck in the Underdark for the third week?
Yeah, right.
And haven't seen the sun.
And does that affect your power? Like, how does that affect you in your power and your play style? Because I mean, you would get weaker probably. Is that a flavor you want to inject in the game too? Mm-hmm. I think the majority of times that I've played a religious character, it's been a dwarven cleric who has their communion cask, and so like my prayer is just like my morning beer in the morning. Like I always pick the crafting deity. Yeah, man. Right. I always pick the deity of the craft. I take brewer's stuff. I make my own beer, and then I make everybody drinks, and that's how I worship. Because that's something I think is fun in a game to like have your cask over your back that you're just carrying around everywhere. Because it's I gotta say my prayers in the morning to get my spells.
Gotta do communion.
Gotta do communion. Gotta have a couple pints.
And then you go through the pale and get thrown in jail because Mirrodin is a heathen god.
Yeah. So is that then that's something, I guess, how do you guys feel about your character's religion being an interesting plot point in the world, right? Like if you say you worship the god of the craft and you've got your cask and you're ready to pour your beer, and in come the city guards because we only worship Loth here, and you can't do that. Is that interesting for you guys to have?
I think in that case you have a bigger question of like, why are you sitting in the middle of the Underdark trying to drink a beer?
Well, you just said we've been here for 3 weeks.
Yeah. So I think one of the things is, in the moment, I hated being in the Pale. Like, for the years we played Living Greyhawk, playing in the Pale, dealing with Foltest and all the nonsense that came with it.
Yep.
But it became fun to hate the Pale.
It did. Mm-hmm. And it was fun, yeah. Like, that Foltest character kind of made those games for me, though.
I never actually played those games. I don't think I ever got to actually play a game with that character. But every interaction because you got to play the games that were set in the Pale, but you were also able to play the games that were set out of the, like, not that were setting agnostic, basically. Mm-hmm. And so we played a majority of those. So it was very rare that we actually did a Pale game. But every time you went there, it was like, oh my dear God, how can we screw over Foltest today?
Yeah. Well, so did that person's character inform the fact that you hated Foltest, or was it stuff that was built into the games by the GM?
I think a lot of
It was the world.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was baked into the mods.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Like
so
a lot
then
of that hatred came through in box text.
so then the way that the religion in that setting shaped the world made like informed the way that you wanted to act on that world.
Mm-hmm.
Would
Yeah.
it have been the same if like it was an evil king or something like that, or would you have just been like, well, we go kill the evil king like right away?
I think that actually is a point. Like an evil king or an overlord is something physical, something you can stop. But a religion is encompassing, short of the whole nation being destroyed.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
A
This
religion's
isn't
going
going
to
away.
spread far wider than just a kingdom,
Mhm.
an isolated kingdom. It's something you're going to have to be addressed with, or it has to be addressed in everywhere to some degree. Some greater in some areas than others, but it's something you're going to consistently have to address.
Yeah. So next thing to bring up though is what is the best representation you've seen of God directly acting? So not just a faith, but actual intervention.
Okay,
In
so
a
like
RPG.
actually having the deities come down and act on the world.
I don't know if this counts, but in what's in the box very early when we were on the island, we had to deal with the gods after we the machine. We fixed the machine.
Mm-hmm.
We brought them out of the machine. I think that's the first time I think in a game I've ever come quote unquote face to face with a deity or a god level character like that I can recall. And then we smoked that bitch.
Well, I think it was the dude that you smoked, but
Yeah, it was.
I ran that game. So the setting there was there were three deities, two sisters and their brother. And the brother had fallen for some demon or something like that, and the father locked the demon away in and basically created hell by doing it. And the brother like goes mad and tries to kill dad, and so the sisters, the two other gods, like basically sacrifice themselves to build a prison to trap him. And so when you guys get to this, and the island was the prison, like it was formed by this act, and the volcano, and there was this whole like engine because one of the girl gods was the god of one of the gods of creation, and so they built this whole machine as like a thing, and powered by a volcano to keep him trapped. And so as you guys interacted around the world, the gods sort of chose two of the characters as avatars and started to slowly like give them powers, until you ultimately made your way to go and blow up the machine and let the god out, the evil god out, so you could kill him.
So then beyond that, like not necessarily the gods directly interacting, but what examples have you seen of religion in general working to benefit a campaign successfully? Everyone's typing.
Yeah.
No,
So
yeah,
Oh.
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I don't really, the biggest one is Foltis and how that interacted, but not necessarily an RPG, but the setting of Dragonlance is one that I've always loved for its interactions of gods and how they play into the story. Like the entire original Dragonlance books was a story of religion about there are gods. We need to find them. There are legitimate gods, and there's people who believe in these fake gods and trying to spread the correct religion and trying to get people to worship gods who actually want to better their lives and find them. And
yeah, I mean, I think that could be really interesting having, it basically creates factions in the world, right? Instead of the factions being based on, like you said, kingdoms or location, it's based on the ways these religions want to act, enact change in their world. So you end up sort of like hooking up with these different factions that are built by these different, counter religions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, apparently nobody has other examples. So I guess
haven't
the
played in
question.
a lot of games where the gods actually come and hang out.
Yeah, it's only happened to me.
Yeah.
I think once ever.
All right. So further than that, then does
we did the
religion
Snuffledorf game.
Snuffledorf?
Oh Jesus! No, it's okay. We can skip it.
Okay.
Fruddle fun.
Does religion add or subtract from the narrative?
Yes,
Like-
depending on the GM and the players, it can
Yeah.
do either.
I think it definitely.
It's a tool, and it depends on how you use it. You can use it for bad. You can use it for good. I mean, it really depends. I've seen both. I've just seen more negative than good in my personal experience. I've seen it detract more than add.
Yeah, I agree. And this is both Endo and Blake's points kind of resonate with. Unfortunately, in most games, the lazy example of a god is he is a glorified exclamation mark over his head.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hey, go do the thing.
Oh, here's this bullet point list of expectations of me. I have to follow these things. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Here's my daily things that I must abide. These are the rules of my character I have to abide by. All it does is, I mean, I'm sorry. I think a lot of times it's just literally putting your character in a box.
So are we just talking about like actual, deities that have followers and religions for them, or are we talking about like god powered, like deity powered other characters, like in Dresden, the Summer Queen, the Winter Queen?
I'd argue they're for all intents and purposes gods in that universe.
Oh yeah.
They're like that place, that setting definitely has the hierarchy of beings, but I would argue the queens are not as powerful as the white god, as they call him. But
or like the only other thing I could really think of is like the Iron Druid series. There's a ton of interactions with gods in that, and I mean, for the most part, it's really cool. I like to play a game set in that. That'd be cool.
I think. Well, I mean, we played demigods recently.
Well, I was literally going to let you guys continue for a minute and then say, well, what about demigods?
Yeah, I mean, I think in games where the fact that there are many gods, or that the gods are at war, or there's some sort of peril there, that's more of the Greek style story, right? Like the gods are somebody's gonna piss somebody off, and they're gonna go do a thing, and then the humans are gonna have to figure it out because they fucked it all up, right? That's definitely I mean, they fall more into a active, a hurricane hit this town, or a god got pissed and fucked up this town, and now we got to go figure out how to fix it. Like that's definitely one way you could use gods in games. I like smaller scale deities. I like deities that aren't omnipresent, and I mean, I really love deities like the Raven Queen and things like that have a smaller scope. Like Pelor always feels like it's supposed to be that's supposed to be your, representation of the typical god, right? And I don't know, it feels nebulous, right? Like, other than the fact that that Pelor hates undead, there's not a lot to get from Pelor for me.
Yeah. He's pretty bland.
Well, he's just the god of good. He's the god of doing good and stopping the bad.
Yeah. Which
Like,
isn't particularly interesting.
Yeah, but if you want a default setting on a cleric and you're just like, I don't want to put too much thought into this, I just want to go out, save the world, bash some vampires.
Vecna healer. Vecna clearer.
Be a radiant servant.
Yeah.
Oh, Gidget mentioned in the chat that I had a character who thought Bacchus was my dad. So we played a Dresden Files game, and I was like an orphan who had like some shape change stuff and some wizardy powers, and Bacchus kept calling me, like, so we interacted with Bacchus through this like it was a thing in Caesar's Palace. We had like gone to Caesar's Palace, and there was like a shrine or whatever, and so my character gets to talk to Bacchus, and Bacchus keeps calling me son, and my character's supposed to be kind of dumb, and I'm like, wait, are you my dad? And so then for the rest of the game, I'm basically a worshiper of Bacchus, but it's like, guys, we got to do this. My dad is counting on me.
Think you're a demigod.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh yeah, because you were playing a pothead hipster.
Yeah,
Yep.
I was like a pothead druidy
He
kind of
was
character.
dense as hell.
Yeah. That was fun.
Did anyone ever correct him, or did everyone
No.
just go with
Of course
it? I think
not.
it was just
Or
rolling.
someone may have corrected me, and I was like, I don't know. I'm pretty sure he's my dad.
Here's the funny
Nobody
thing.
cared.
I played like 3 or 4 sessions with that character. I don't think I was ever in the same spot as him for more than like 10 seconds at a time.
No. Yeah.
I was
Unless
like,
we had
okay,
to
you
travel
have a
through a
problem.
tree.
Yeah, you have a problem. I'm not dealing with you. I'm going to go do this.
Yeah.
I'm going to go.
Can we please go play Dresden again? Like, I don't care which one you guys restarts it, but I want to play Dresden some more.
I have to say.
I just didn't like. I didn't like the fate system. That was my only problem.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll have to go back and pick a different game and run a game like it.
I
But
loved the setting. I loved our characters. I just didn't like fate.
Yeah. I want to come back to the, does religion add or subtract from the narrative? I think it can definitely add to the narrative. I think it can add to the narrative. Especially if the players have buy-in, if everyone's on the same page about what it means. I think it can make the world feel real, right? If you get to a town and there are people that have like, oh well, we can't fix your armor right now. It's mass, right? Like they've got shit to do. Like they're not gonna be able to be at your beck and call. It makes the world feel like it's doing something when you're not there, right? If people have daily routines.
Not to mention entering a town that has a non-standard religion,
Oh yeah.
and all of a sudden you have committed some paw.
Right.
Creates a very interesting scenario.
That's why you always just play it safe and worship Farling. He's like the god of travel. Nobody ever has a problem with that dude. And it's just like, hey, okay. Have
I don't
fun.
know, the xenophobic monks of the hill.
Well, then it's going to be a monk battle, and guess who's going to win that?
I think the biggest problem that you see with like religion and characters, like where a lot of these problems probably come from, is the fact that D&D forced a whole 2 to 3 classes to worship a deity, and so players made weird choices because that wasn't really the story they wanted to tell.
Yeah.
Right? So you ended up with the way that the world is built isn't flexible enough to cover all the things that these people wanted to do, and so they ended up making weird choices or just ignoring the religion aspect of it to get
Which is
the
what most people.
powers.
Yeah, most people I think either ignored that aspect of their character unless the GM kind of like forced them to address it.
Right.
And I will say, at least later in D&D, the amount of deities diversified so much. You could usually find something. I mean, cleric was probably the hardest one because you kind of got pigeonholed a lot. But other than clerics, like you really could. You had a pretty diverse list of things to pick if you really wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Well, and a lot of
other than-
times the deities had nothing to do with the story at hand, right? The deity didn't care about whether you got the loot from the dungeon, and so like the religious aspect of your character didn't really make a difference in the world. And so unless you're playing in a home game, or like I don't play in organized play stuff anymore. So unless you're playing in a game where you and the GM are building the religion and what it means to your character and what it means to the world together so that it's interesting for everyone, like it's tough. It's a weird thing to shoehorn in.
Well, I think it depends on the setting, because like we're talking about clerics, and clerics are pretty much, well, and paladins, the only classes that have class mechanics based on the deity you choose. So if you're an optimizer, which is a polite way of saying min-maxer, of course you're going to choose the deity primarily based on what domains you're going to get out of it, or what your bonuses are going to be based on what you want your character to do. So that is what's going to pigeonhole you more than anything. Like if I'm playing a healer cleric, of course I'm going to go Palor so I could have access to the Radiant Servant, and so I could take the healing domain and all this stuff. But if you're playing like any other class, who cares? Just put anything you want on your sheet. If you want to be a monk of Charest and just run around and lust after everybody, go nuts. Like, nobody cares.
Oh, those sexy monks.
I still do intend one of these days, whenever I get around to it, I would love to run the
Team cleric.
Team cleric game, in which every person is a 3/5 cleric of different faiths that can fill all the traditional roles. You have your battle cleric, you have your Arsop, Radiant Servant of Pelor, for the healer. You have your cleric of skill, which gets the thievery domains. You have the cleric, the magic domains. You have
arcane casters. Yeah,
and then send them out on a holy quest, and you have people who are trying to fulfill each of their individual gods' opinion of how this quest should be done, and hijinks ensue.
And then they all go to the Pale, and it becomes a prison escape.
Right. So Blake made a good point in the chat. Is if you make a Arsop, right? It's because you want to destroy undead. Right, you want to blow up undead, and so you're saying to the GM, "I want undead in this game," and if they don't provide undead for you to blow up with your super magic powers, then they're breaking that. You're going to lose that buy-in, or they're breaking that social contract. Yeah. One of my favorite experiences playing a religious character, because I've only done it like 3 times maybe, and I had forgotten my 4th ed character that when we played the game that Nightson ran. Was we played 4th edition D&D, and I was an Avenger, which is like a holy assassin, right? It's the angry murder version of a paladin. And so I wasn't going to just take one of the gods off the shelf stock. I went and wrote my own, but like a dirty, filthy min-maxer that I am when I play 4th edition, because it's a board game, I wanted a specific domain, right? So I was like, I need the domain of murder because it had to be knowledge. I need the domain of knowledge or something like that, because I wanted a specific power that let me use at wills instead of basic melee attacks. So like I wrote this whole thing about what's it, Kelemvor or Kelemvor, I think is was the god of the dead, had been destroyed and split into the 4 aspects that they were attributed to them, and then so I was a worshiper of one of those aspects as like an avatar that had to go and murder and sacrifice in their name to build up their power so they could eventually reassemble. Like I wrote this whole thing of why my character gave a shit and why he had to go out and do murders, so that it was fun, right? Like I built that in so that it was interesting and engaging. Every time I killed someone, I dedicated their death to my deity in that game. But it didn't it was in line with what everyone else wanted, right? It was like an evil party. Mm-hmm. So it fit the story that we were going to tell together.
And kind of going off that, honestly, that solves a lot of your problem with the inherent nature wanting to get a god that fits what your character wants to be, but not be terrible. Mm-hmm. Make your own. You don't necessarily have to use the pantheon of Forgotten Realms if that's happened to be where you are. Maybe this is a lesser known deity. Maybe this is the unwritten about son of Mistra, who is magic and stabbing, if that happens to work better for you.
Put your character in a box, but I mean, at least you get to make the box.
Well, so that goes, to my next point is canon deities versus player created deities. One of my favorite things is basically looking at the cleric or looking at the paladin and saying, you tell me what your god wants you to do. You're the one who worships them. Why would I know? Right? Like, you help me build the god that you want to play, that you want to see happen. And then of course, as the person running the game, you're going to build that into the world and you're going to make sure there's hooks there for that kind of stuff. But I like to see the players decide what their religious character worships. Like, Dungeon World specifically calls this out and says, tell me the name of your deity. Pick one of these things. Why would you worship that person? What do they ask of you? Like,
or do what I did, and I'm not actually worshiping a deity. I'm just stealing the power.
I'm a clerical thief. There was a clerical error in my favor, and I get superpowers. But how do you guys feel about that? Like, if I were to look to you and say, you tell me what your God is about, does that change how you feel about religion?
I would prefer that 1,000% more.
Ironically, that actually works in a different sense, because not only just because the book says that Foltest is a god of happiness and sunshine and healing and killing undead, doesn't mean how your character interprets his writings is going to be that. And Foltest might be cool with you being mostly what he's writing about.
Yeah.
But instead you like punching undead and not saving all the babies. Maybe saving 2 out of 3 babies.
Right.
That's cool with Foltest.
That's an awful lot of babies. Do they have to be human babies?
They might be.
Who knows?
Okay.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about using canon deities is saying the deity picked me. I didn't pick the deity. Like, especially as a paladin, you have the freedom to say, I've been imbued with this power because they see in me something that that fits what they want. But it doesn't mean that I chose this life, right? Like, a paladin doesn't necessarily mean that a paladin doesn't go to church and pray every day to hope they get powers. They just suddenly got powers because they, either through divination or some aspect of their character, that deity thought they were a good fit to make change in the world. A cleric, on the other hand, like, you worship that god for a reason, and it doesn't have to be the reason that's in the book. You could be a heretic. Like, you know what I mean? And if you still have your powers, you're probably the one that's right, and they're all heretics. So now you're walking around telling everybody that Foltest is really a good guy. Someone said it, someone read it backwards, and you're all doing it wrong. Look, I can prove it. I have clerical powers, right? Like, I can cast magic spells. He would take them away if I was wrong.
Well, the problem with paladins is they don't get spellcasting second level. So up until they hit second level, they're basically just fighters. So how do they know they've been chosen by God?
Who starts at first level?
Literally every D&D game we've ever played.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, yeah. D&D is a game about doing that 0 to hero thing. And
no,
the
D&D is a game about it goes up to 30 now, man. Let's start at something higher.
Just keep moving those goalposts.
Yeah.
Hell, you take that an interesting way, though. Like, you say the god has imbued that power with you. Can they get it back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if you go off and start doing stuff that's counter to what they want? Can they take it away?
Like, you look at the Dresden series, the queens can't. They physically can't take their power back. So if they
could. They
can murder you.
Well, yeah, they can kill you. Just like.
Oh, go ahead.
Foltest could send his followers to end you, but if you start working contrary, do your powers still work?
Not in D&D. There's rules. If your alignment goes so far away from your deity, you lose your superpowers, right?
See, that's a problem with D&D. We need to get all these people to play a better game and tell a more interesting story. Because to me, like, saying I'm a paladin of this dude, they can't take my powers back because they already gave them to me, and that's not how this works. And now the game is about me running away from worshippers of my god because I do it different.
That would be awesome, but you would not gain any additional powers. So as you would level up during the game, your god's going to be like, well, I can't take back your cure light wounds, but I'm not giving you cure serious.
Well, that's to say that's
multi-classing right there.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say there is, who's to say that the power's not there? You're just learning how to use it better.
Okay, run that game, Kurt.
It's a representation of your skill with the power imbued in you. See, this is why you need a session 0, people.
Yeah.
So you can have these kinds of discussions at the table, and everyone
This
can
is
go,
Kurt.
"Hey, this is a great idea. Let's play this game."
This is
And-
Kurt trying to put story game bullshit in a traditional RPG.
Well, not even that, but I think it's a good example of why any game is made more interesting if you look at some of the rules and go, you know what? I think our game and our story and everything would be more interesting if this wasn't there.
Yeah. House
Rule for
rules.
grappling.
House rules are okay if the house agrees.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's the whole point.
I remember years ago reading the Shadowrun core book. Said that if something doesn't work for you, make it up, change it. FASA does not watch people playing games in their house anymore. It became cost prohibitive.
No one's gonna come to your house and stop you.
I'm doing this. Your Alexa in your kitchen's like, well, actually,
Yeah, I mean, if you're not,
that's not how that works.
if you're not playing like a living campaign or some organized play thing, then just change whatever you want. Who cares?
Yeah.
As long as everybody agrees on it and it's fun.
I do actually now want to get an Alexa. Alexa, explain to me grapple in this setting for the system.
So apparently Alexa can take you on an adventure. If you, I forget which, there's like an app you can install, and then you can be like, Alexa, let's go on an adventure or something like that, and it'll start running a D&D campaign for you. And you basically just give it it's the old MUDs, right? The like up, down, left, right, interact with object kind of thing.
North.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zork style.
That's funny. Put the newspaper under the door.
Instead of Alexa, its name is Rules Lawyer.
Yeah. Hey, rules lawyer. How many D6 do I roll? Well, what do you think, y'all? I think this is a podcast.
I think
Yeah.
that's okay.
Anybody have any final thoughts on gods and RPGs and religion and RPGs before we call it a night?
I ultimately have to say that just like anything else, more flavor is more better. And bad players can ruin anything. So don't let a bad experience with gods or anything else because a bad player was a bad player.
Yeah.
Ruin trying it and making it better.
Yep. And session 0. All right. Well,
I kind of want to go back to the pale and set fire to it.
Well, maybe we'll play that game, right? Well, you guys have been dying to do a 3-5 game. Someone needs to run a pale game, and it's just us running around lighting everything on
I'm
fire.
not playing 3-5 with you fucking min-maxers. I'm not doing it.
That's
I
just
won't
'cause
build
you
a
don't
3-5
have
character
40
ever again.
hours.
I don't have 3 months to make a character,
Yeah.
and oh my god.
I will not make a 3-5 character ever again.
And
I'm not on my
Nightson and
previous
Oreztes will just break the whole campaign, and I'm just going to end up sitting there for 6 hours watching them destroy
Endo,
everything.
you won't make a Savage Worlds character. What do you?
That's
What do you?
true.
Well, I know,
arguing?
but it's way worse. It's so much worse.
The only reason to make a PBTA character is because it's built into the first session.
Playing 3.5 with you two is like going. Like I might as well just watch it online. Just like someone set up a camera and I'll just watch.
Well, to be fair, that's because we were planning on two-manning most of the games, and then other people just showed up at the table.
Yeah.
We literally, that one game where we literally, and then there was extra players like, yeah, you can sit down at the table with us.
Poor guy.
I'm so-
I'm going to learn the new
2d12
Savage
damage.
Worlds.
It's like,
I'm going
alright,
to totally learn. Once Gidget gets all the documentation for the new Savage Worlds, I'm going to totally learn it. I'm not really going to learn it.
I was like, I don't see that happening.
Like, I don't believe you. Nobody believes you.
All right, Blake, what is From the Ashes, Blake? Because if that is a campaign or a module in which we get to burn the pale down, I will go find it right now.
Yeah, Mutant of the Night tomorrow at 4 p.m. Yes.
Yes.
It's
Don't
going
forget
to be a
tune in.
good game for sure.
Yeah, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard. DC will be here running Mutants in the Night for us. We're going to be mutants. It's going to be awesome.
And the character gen, I guess, is going to be done live.
Yeah, it's part of the game. So,
Okay. So
one-shot style or con game style. Greyhawk box set. took over most of Northern Greyhawk. Scarlet Brotherhood took over tons of Southern Greyhawk. Okay, so cool. They did it for us. We don't have to burn down the Pale.
Just so long as I know it doesn't exist anymore, I'm happy.
Well, thanks everybody for watching. If you'd like to learn more about the show, you can head to pixelscandal.com to find past episodes, links to our YouTube, Twitch channel, audio feed, our social media presence. I post most frequently on Twitter, so if you want to know when things go live or just hear me talk about games and rant on Twitter, you can follow us at Pixel Scandal. And if you want to support this show, you can do that by subbing on Twitch at twitch.tv/pixelscandal, or by heading over to our Patreon and checking out the different rewards you get at the different backer levels at patreon.com/pixelscandal. Thank you everyone for joining us.
All right.
Yay.
Have a good one.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye.
They don't love you. None of them do. Not really. Don't trust it.